All right, good morning, and thank you very much, Michael. That was a kind of an interesting introduction. You know, you kind of forget all these different events that happen throughout the course of your career, and that was a very interesting exchange. We all learned a little bit there. So really happy to be here. It's a little bit like, you know, it's a very friendly group. My most recent talk was with a group of nursing educators, which was also pretty interesting, and you realize that education is education is education, learning is learning is learning, depending on, you know, kind of regardless of the topic. Really interested in hearing also from all of you kind of what you're thinking about, what the big challenges are of the day, and kind of really thinking about, have we made progress? Are we making progress? Where are we? And again, globally. So very big welcome to the US from all of you from other countries. We're really, really happy that you've joined us here. So, all right, with that, so yes, Digital Promise is an organization that works at the intersection of educators, researchers, and developers. And for all three of those groups, we know they can benefit from the interactions with each other. So we're intent on getting research out of just the research hands into the hands of both practitioners and developers. And likewise, getting developers into schools and classrooms so they can be developing smarter and better materials and resources, and supporting educators with the very best tools and resources that can augment their performance. So that's kind of the work we do every day, pretty general description. But kind of four things. We believe in the power of networks. So networks that connect us together. So this is a network. You connect with each other. You talk to each other. So we believe in building these networks. We have the League of Innovative Schools as one of our networks. We'll mention a little bit about, and then we also have our Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. Now let's tell you a quick thing about that. During the Obama administration, they called on companies to work in education to promote, or to provide supports for technology and professional development and the like. And interestingly, Verizon stepped forward and they said, yes, we commit $100 million, which is a lot of money, as you know. And they have since worked with Digital Promise. We now have 100 middle schools where every student and teacher has a tablet device, so it kind of breaks the digital divide on day one. So in school, out of school, every student has technology access. But as you know, that's not enough. So lots and lots of professional development in the form of in-school coaching. So kind of using this coaching model to work with all the teachers. And then just lots of professional technical support, leadership support, and also building this network between these schools so they are also working with each other. So that's an example of a network. We connect people together. We believe in the power of networks to build kind of collective energy. We also believe in the power of story, and today I'll be sharing multiple stories with you in the form of these videos. The power of story to inspire and incentivize action and to show kind of in very tangible terms kind of what's possible. We also believe obviously in the power of research, and this is kind of, again, we won't dwell on that too much because you are the researchers after all, and we really are intent on, as I said, getting that research out. And finally, the power of engagement, because engagement is what helps people become very productive, lifelong learners. They lean forward, they're engaged, they build agency, they can begin to take care of their learning needs, their own advancement. So the power of engagement is the fourth power. So the second thing that we do besides networks is we also take on R&D challenges. We have a few of those we'll talk about a little bit today. I think 3 of them will kind of come up through the course of this presentation, and that's the second thing that we do. One of them, for example, is, as I said, really trying to figure out how do we get research out of the kind of the places you publish papers, right? Beautiful peer-reviewed, well-researched papers, and into the hands of other people. So we really seek to increase the use of all of this research as people design, as they develop, as they improve education products, strategies, practices, programs. So what we published was this visualization of citation data, taking the citation data and the content from the Web of Science, so anything that's been published in multiple journals that are represented in the Web of Science, all peer-reviewed, and presenting these in topics and subtopics of visualization. If you haven't seen it, it's quite interesting. It represents over 100,000 scholarly articles. It kind of looks like that. And then when you click on any of these bubbles, these are the topics, and then you can also go into the subtopics. When you click on any of those bubbles, you can get the most represented papers, authors, keywords, sources, etc. So generally what researchers do then is they quickly go and see if they're represented. You're going to look for your own name, see where you are in that list. But this is so this is a visualization, and we continually update this. Also at this site are many videos, for example, videos of research practices. So I would also encourage you, as you come up with things, think about how you're going to get your research out into the hands of people who can use it, and check out some of the videos, because you can kind of see like how you could actually present the findings, and help people know what to do about it. Okay, so that's one example. So the main topic today, though, is powerful learning, the big idea, powerful learning. What is powerful learning? How do we ensure that many more people have access and have the opportunity to learn in ways that are very powerful and supporting their own engagement? So why are we doing this? So interestingly, we look for inspiration from Jack Ma. So Jack Ma is the founder and president of Alibaba, which you know is the kind of the Google of China and then some. And he had, at the World Economic Forum, he spoke about education for a couple minutes, I think. This is a 34-second clip that kind of pulls out the essence of what he was talking about. It's very important to hear from someone like this.
Education, it's a big challenge now.
Do we have some sound?
Not change the way we teach.
Can you turn it up a little?
30 years later, we'll be in trouble, because the way we teach.
All right, I'm going to start this again so that we can, so you can actually hear it, since it's a kind of a short clip. You want me to turn it up on here? Got it. Ready? Now we're going to close your ears. We're going to blow you all out now. Okay, ready?
Education, it's a big challenge now. If we do not change the way we teach, 30 years later, we'll be in trouble. Because the way we teach, the thing we teach our kids are the things the past 200 years is knowledge-based. And we cannot teach our kids to compete with machine who is smarter. We have to teach something unique. That is, machine can never catch up with us.
So we need to figure out what is uniquely human so that the machines cannot catch up. So when we think about that, what are those kinds of things that are uniquely human, right? What are the kinds of skills and things that the machines can't do? So with the advent of artificial intelligence, we all should be way more worried, changing our actions, getting things out there much more rapidly. Artificial intelligence is taking off, and we know that the skills and the jobs and what is going to happen in this next 20, 30 years we are going to be in trouble, as Jack Ma said, if we don't change the way we teach and begin to develop skills in young people, in people that will enter the workforce that are uniquely human. Okay, think of an example of powerful learning from your past. An example of powerful learning, some time that was just something that was powerful. Can anybody want to stand up and speak loudly? Example of powerful learning. All right over here. Does someone have a microphone? Actually, maybe that would be easier. But go ahead and speak loudly and see if.
Powerful learning is when, for me, growing up, like when I went into high school, I had a wonderful Italian teacher, and she kind of gave me the essence of more emotional support rather than the actual skills or process of doing something. So she gave me something that knowledge or just information cannot touch.
Perfect. An Italian teacher that also made sure that there was the emotional side of things were in order and supported, because we know that that's important. Well, let's go ahead and jump into this. If we simplify it, so as you maybe think about something that was powerful, what are quick one-word, one-phrase attributes of powerful learning? And go ahead and just shout them out. Or have some more coffee. Wake up. People, wake up. Work with me. Creative thinking, impact. What was that over there? Transformational. Change. Active, yes. Purpose, and what was the other one? Practical. I thought you said fractal, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting too. Practical, yes. Engaging. Making mistakes. Using technology. Challenging. Good job, everybody. Yay! Give yourselves a round of... Okay, those are some phrases that describe powerful learning. So now you can kind of think about something in your past that kind of embodies some of those things. So let me give you sort of 5 principles of powerful learning. Okay, so 5 things that we think are, it isn't exhaustive, but kind of 5 pretty interesting parts. So first of all, authentic, relevant. Second, team-based, collaborative, working with other people. Third, the use of inquiry, so questioning. Fourth, agency, building agency, self-ownership, and that kind of thing. And then 5th, personal, right? So 5 things. So we're going to go through these one by one, and I have a little example of each one of them. So first of all, if we think about people solving and working on authentic and relevant problems, nobody needs to make these up. We have a lot of them right in front of us. And if we think about the students in the U.S., from Broward County in Florida, Parkland High School, that have a very personal, authentic, relevant, real problem, and they are working on it. They're on it. They're solving. They're looking for solutions. They're asking a lot of questions. They're engaging. Like, that's an example of a very powerful learning experience that they will take with them for the rest of their lives, fortunately and unfortunately. So first is authentic, relevant problems. So this first video is the DIY girls. These are some Latina high school students in San Fernando, California. They took the problem of homelessness that was kind of, they saw around them and thought, what can we do? And because it sounds a little bit hard to hear, I'll tell you what they decided to do was learn how to make solar-powered tents. So I'll play this video for you.
Homelessness is an issue in this community because even on the daily walking to school, we see people living on the streets. Just the closeness to our hearts that this issue has just made us want to make it a #1 priority. My name is Paola and I'm a part of the DIY Girls. The DIY Girls is a group of girls here at San Fernando High School who were challenged with creating or engineering solutions to different social problems in our community. So the Lemelson MIT Invent Team program was a grant of $10,000 given to 15 teams throughout the nation, and we all have to engineer a project to help with a social problem. And one thing that was really cool is we were the only all-female Latina team. A lot of the times when people think, how can I help with homelessness, they think about giving money to organizations, but that's not really an option when it's you that's being affected by it. You don't have the money to be giving to someone else when it's your family that might be on the street one day. So we thought, what other ways can we help this problem? So our team invented a durable solar-powered tent for homelessness, and the solar panel includes LED lights, UVC lights for sanitation, and a USB port for charging phones and other electronics. And the tent itself is very durable and portable. Coming from a low-income community, low-income school, we didn't have all the resources that a lot of the teams did have. The internet was our greatest tool. We used YouTube videos, Google, and things like that to help us learn how to sew and code and do all the things. And it feels great to know that we're up there with those people and we're getting recognized for all the hard work that we did. Now that I know that I can learn all these things and I feel empowered in what I'm doing, I know that I can find solutions to problems like this.
All right, they learned how to code and sew on the internet, right? So they figured out how to do all of these things to create, to make these tents that would support folks. So one of the places that you can, we all can look for inspiration for ideas about what are these grand challenges that are global and also very local are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, right? So everything from poverty to gender to food, water, life under the sea, life on land. All of these kinds of things that are incredibly important for the sustainability of the planet and our civilizations. These goals provide ample opportunity for students to roll up their sleeves and solve these problems. These also have, on their website, they also have lots of support resources for education. So the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is definitely a source for those kinds of problems. All right, the second attribute of powerful learning is connected, collaborative, team-based experiences. So for this one, the example is a group of boys at a school in Southern California, and they worked, the topic in their classroom was non-infectious diseases. Okay, so they're studying something, and if you think about studying, creating a unit for non-infectious diseases with middle school students, you can kind of think, okay, this is going to be fun, and how am I going to engage them? So what they did is they had the students pick a non-infectious disease and create and do something that would support people who had that disease. So the one that these students picked was asthma. Some other students picked lupus. There were some other things that people picked. This group of students picked asthma, and they had seen one of their classmates pass out because the inhaler inside the backpack that kids have these inhalers that help them if they need help breathing, right? So they inhale the steroids or whatever they are. Had discharged in the backpack. So when they pull it out of the backpack, well, it's already discharged, because you can picture, they throw these things in their backpack and throw their books on top of it, et cetera. So they said, well, let's see if we can create something to solve this problem.
We are not giving them a problem. We're giving them a challenge to just go out in the community and make a positive change.
This is really that chance for really meaningful and deep learning. I mean, it really allows students to just go as far as they want to with it.
So our challenge was to create a product that could measurably affect our community around us. So everyone in my group found that asthma was our biggest interest. A lot of people, especially at this age, don't use their inhalers very often. So when they'll put it in their backpack, they'll come back 3 months later and it'll be completely empty. So we made this cap that goes on that makes sure that that doesn't happen when you're not using it for a long period of time. And so basically with our program, it's something called an open source file, which means that anyone who has a 3D printer, they can download it and print it themselves. This really gives us the ability to distribute to millions and millions of people that we couldn't do otherwise. So we kind of really realized that we could take advantage of the opportunity we had to really help everyone, and because we weren't really aware of how much we can actually do with these 3D printers, like how much people we can distribute it to, how many schools we can help. I never really had the opportunity to really affect my community. I feel like all our projects and all our classes were really just kind of about getting work done. With this project, I could really have my own ideas and be able to affect thousands of people around me.
Just following passions of whatever it is really what we're pushing for, we're striving for. Because at the end of the day, any student in any grade level, in any discipline, they're going to care about a project more if they're utilizing their talents and skills.
Okay, so those students figured out what they were surprised about is they had their 3D printer and they'd probably be making little plastic items of random sorts. But suddenly they were like, oh, we can design this cap for the inhaler, and not only can we print them here, but we can publish them on the internet, and anybody with a 3D printer can download those plans and print their own. So they were very surprised at the reach that their particular solution had. So again, and they worked as a team, they worked with each other, they learned things that a normal unit on non-infectious diseases may not generally take them to. Okay, so the next is inquiry focused. This whole notion of taking a challenge and asking, what do we know and what do we need to know to solve this challenge? And continuously asking questions, question. This is a really important part of any kind of problem-solving process, but staying in the question, not jumping straight to solutions. Many times in schools, when you think about project-based learning, many times what it is the teacher has the solution and the students are going to implement. They'll call it a project, but they're going to implement the solution that the teacher thought of, right? So maybe it's like a drive to decrease plastic bag use, right? So they start with the solution and then the students are figuring out how to run this drive. Rather, can you talk about the problem, like the problem that plastic bags pose, for example, and have the students come up with all different solutions to the grander challenge, the bigger idea associated with that. So this whole notion of inquiry is important. This next video, to go with inquiry, is a young woman was involved with STEM and robotics, and she asked the question, why are there no other black or brown girls at these robotics competitions that I go to? And so what she decided to do to solve this problem was to run a Saturday morning STEM class at her mosque for middle school girls. So this girl was in high school. She decided, the folks that were 4 or 5 years younger than her, she would invite them on Saturday mornings. So and I'll tell you, I've met Zaina, and she talks in paragraphs. So you'll notice in this video, she talks in paragraphs. But what she did was she asked all these questions about how do people learn? What is curriculum? How would I set this up for these young women? And how do I create a challenge for them? So this is their story.
So it is Saturday, and as with every Saturday, these girls come in for many hours to work on their progress in preparation for a robotics competition, for which they've learned the fundamentals of the robotics platform that they will be using in preparation for a first LEGO League robotics competition. This year, the theme is hydrodynamics. That means that the girls have to consider in the real world how we use, transport, and dispose of water, and they, like every first LEGO League team, have to come up with a solution that they find within that framework, and then try to create a real-world innovation that could possibly be used to combat whatever problem they did find. So they really have to engage with real-life, research issues and figure out how they could make an impact on their chosen community through that research prompt. For myself, I thought, why can't I find another Muslim girl in my community who's interested in robotics and STEM the way I am? And, I took that further and said, why don't I see enough different brown girls, black girls, Latina girls at robotics competitions? And that was just kind of the question that led me to think, could I possibly help those girls be interested in STEM? So FemSTEM was the effort for me to engage with my community. I wanted to teach robotics somehow because I had all this great robotics knowledge to teach the middle school kids. I've been interested and enjoying public speaking for so long. How can I apply that to help the girls in my community? And I'd like to help all minority girls with the experience that I've gained.
It's really amazing to have one of my dear friends, one of my closest friends, Zaina, to start one of these, because when she first came up with the idea, I was like, yeah, it sounds pretty cool. We can do it for a couple years. It won't get too big. And then throughout the competition season, I realized how big of an impact this is actually having on girls all over the world.
So when they're able to connect what they've learned to impacts that they can make on the real world around them and solve problems that are immediately there for them in their community, that's very relevant, and it's going to make a lesson so much more important and stick in their mind so much longer. My name is Zaina, and I'm the founder of FemSTEM.
So again, and hopefully through this, you all think of examples in your own worlds of other powerful learning kind of opportunities, and you can kind of look at these attributes and kind of see which ones fit. So the next one is building ownership and agency. And again, all of these kind of have all of these attributes, but this is a particularly interesting one as well. So we, just a week ago in Bonn, Germany, at the global, what's it called, the Global Festival of Action, launched something called My World 360. And this is a call to young people everywhere to create 360 videos, so VR videos, about something in their community that is meaningful to them, something they wish people knew about. So this came from, and this is a global call, by the way. Anybody can participate in this. We're doing training and actually kind of a deeper pilot in both Germany and India. But this particular initial is kind of anybody anywhere can participate. So it came from a pilot we did last year. We worked with Oculus, which is the 360 VR company you probably have heard of. And they came to us and said, we're trying to think about VR in education. How many people here work with VR in education? I know there are a number of you. So what they came to us and said is that, how would you use VR in education? And they were really thinking about consumption, like how people would consume and what kinds of things can you teach with 360 video. And so we decided to flip it around and say, well, let's see what students can produce. Can we teach students to create these experiences and share them with others so that everybody can kind of learn from them? So again, it's this idea of participation and having a voice. So the last two videos are both examples of VR and something that has provided has kind of given students an opportunity to own an idea. So this first one is some students who, and VR, as you know, it's impossible to kind of show it on a flat screen, but if you can go online and see all these videos these students have created, and you can put on your own headset if you have one, or you can kind of scroll around with your phone or computer or device or whatever. But these students took this question of standardized tests, right? So they were about to take their standardized tests, and the whole idea was the play here is the guy in the middle is a local politician, and he's coming in to kind of tell the students how important it is for them to do well on their standardized tests. And finally he's like, it's for funding, like just do well because we need it. We need you to do well. But what the students were created a VR about is how it does not measure, it doesn't take into account the creative brain. So I will play this kind of making of this particular video.
Creativity is a part of our everyday life, and I think that creativity should be in every aspect of education.
We try to give the students a voice in their own education. We don't spell everything out for them. We give them a set of parameters, and they can actually take those and build their own learning.
He introduced us to the 360 Video Challenge, and within the next day we were in the greenhouse trying to come up with ideas.
Does anyone have any to start off?
A little bit of weight was added to our shoulders, but it let us come up with stuff on our own that we may have not even thought of if he was telling us what we were going to do right off the bat.
Some kids, when they're given a challenge, they're like, oh, this is going to be difficult. These kids say, how can we make this more difficult? How can we challenge ourselves even more? How can we take this even further?
The tour is a 360 video that is about standardized testing and how it doesn't always give you the most accurate measure of intelligence.
This was our film. We got to produce it and write it. It was so great, but I hope for other students to be able to take ownership and take pride in what they do.
When they feel like they have some say in the direction of their learning and they have ownership of it, then they have more invested.
I think that everybody should experience that type of learning.
So what they did was they were actually able to sort of make it feel like you were transporting, when you put the headset on, you were transported into this kind of creative brain, and they went everywhere from music to art to other kinds of creativity. And interestingly, for these videos these students created, every one of these sites has a mentor, a professional mentor that will look at their work and that kind of thing. And the mentors have said over and over again, what they're surprised about is these high school students are actually doing things technically equal to or better than, thinking of ways to do things that the professionals in this realm are just starting to do or have not done yet. So again, students, when they're given ownership and kind of the agency over their work, they actually can take things much further than they would do otherwise. Okay, and finally, powerful learning is very personal, right? So how do we make this very personal? And we talk a lot about personalized learning, and we'll kind of take that apart a little bit here in a second. But making it personal means very meaningful to you. So this 360 video is actually quite an interesting one. It was about a young student with social anxiety, and her team decided to make a VR about what it's like to have social anxiety. So you can put the headset on and you feel what it's like to kind of get nervous and hear things and be kind of transported into that world. So again, the use of VR for developing empathy, right? So taking something very personal and helping other people understand. So here's this last video.
I can do this. I mean, it's just school. I've been to plenty of schools. It's nothing different. This is gonna be a great day. I can do this. No problem at all.
Our story, Breaking Barriers, is essentially about how anxiety can alter your perception of reality.
Tay and I, we were basically the directors of it.
In the film, our protagonist is new to a school. She's there in the classroom and all of a sudden figures are walking up to her saying negative comments.
You'll never have any friends here.
But in the end, it turns out that it's just her imagination.
I suffer from anxiety. I brought a lot of ideas from how I feel in social circumstances to actually make it feel more realistic.
What are you wearing?
The lines that we made weren't just created. For me personally, I can hear them around school all the time when I walk around through the halls.
We had our fabulous student Liam edit it.
For this video, we had 2 takes. What I did is took the second take with the people walking up to the camera. I'm having the second video fade in just this outlined area.
We wanted to create the idea that it's all in her head.
I am Erica Waski. I'm one of the school counselors at Parkville High School, and I'm about to watch this movie with you guys.
You're useless. You'll never have any friends here.
Hey, would you like to come work with us?
Whew, that was awesome. And really sad, yet really motivating. Honestly, I want to go make my other counselors watch it. Some of them are older than me, and so they may not necessarily remember what it's like to be in high school. I think it was an accurate representation of what I remember high school being. I was immediately transported back there, and just kind of get you in that mindset of how would I as a high school student want my counselor to talk to me.
I would definitely do another 360. It kind of put me in a situation that I'm not used to, so it kind of opened me up a bit to the people that I don't usually talk to.
I just felt like, wow, is this really us? Did we really do this? I'm extremely proud of the final product.
Okay, making something personal, having it be real for the participants. Interestingly, that young woman was able to work with a team and work with people that she didn't necessarily know. So again, kind of creating these experiences for people to have powerful learning in their school. Okay, so making learning personal. So one of the things that we've been working on is this whole notion of learner variability And as probably, hopefully a lot of you have read Todd Rose's book, The End of Average, thinking about how we generally see students as on very limited metrics, right? So it might be grades or attendance or scores on different tests or that kind of thing, where really we have jagged profiles, right? This notion that there are a lot of different attributes and a lot of different things that come into learning, and everybody has kind of a jagged profile. And as we learn more about students, right, regardless of what they're learning, math, reading, whatever it is, can we in fact build a deeper understanding from research about what those factors are, and then ways of understanding students in a much more comprehensive way. So our project called Learner Positioning Systems is all about saying if we're going to personalize learning, we better design and develop much more accurate and precise ways of thinking about personalization. So part of personalization is what is personal, what is your personal experience, what's your story, who are you as a community member and as a person, and some things also have to do with your various skills, everything from visual processing to short-term memory to home literacy environment, trauma, all of those things that make you a full, whole person. And can we deepen our understanding from research about those things? So this is this whole notion of learner variability. One of the things we looked at is in the United States, the increase probably in our understanding about diversity and learner variability and differences, right? So if we think about those kinds of things that come into play, it's poverty, it's those diagnosed disabilities, right? So the things that we generally, the 13 or whatever it is, diagnoses that require kind of an IEP, an individual plan. But also this notion of learning differences, these more distinct, smaller elements, whether you have something around visual processing or working memory, those kinds of things. Those are learning differences that we're beginning to understand. The increase in English language learners, people who have various giftedness exhibited, and then trauma, the importance of understanding trauma and emotion and that kind of thing on learning. So this is, so one of the things we're also looking at then is to say, all right, if there are all of these learning differences and the diversity is growing, where do these people end up sort of in the workforce? So I just found this quick video, and I don't mean to do it's going to sound like an advertisement. It's not an advertisement. It's more to get our heads around how companies like Microsoft, a large company, we don't get any money from Microsoft, how a large company thinks about learner diversity and building a workforce that welcomes and figures out how to create a space for various people to work within. So I'll play this.
Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. We want to open doors for everyone. That includes people with disabilities. There are 1.2 billion people in the world with disabilities. These are our employees, our customers, our friends, our family. We need to empower people with disabilities to come to work as they are, everything of who they are, to go for it. Whether that's building a product, a service, a website, or innovating something crazy that's going to reimagine the future for people with disabilities. People with disabilities have amazing skills. People with disabilities are a strength for this company. We need talent that really understands accessibility to drive innovation. Microsoft is a place where you can be who you are every day, and being who you are is the best skill that any of us can have. To learn more.
Okay, so you kind of get this picture that it's not just a nice thing to have, but it's incredibly good for development. It's good for business. It's good for deepening understanding. And we know that accessibility features on all of your technologies that you have with you today are not just good for those students who have that particular disability, but obviously they're good for everyone. So screen readers are not just for people who are blind. They also are helpful in all sorts of circumstances. But again, I won't go into that. I know you are quite familiar with that topic. So this notion of learner positioning systems, we're developing the factors associated with learning math. We're starting with math and literacy, right? So by the end of the year, we'll have these kind of factor maps completed for pre-K through up to high school, 8th, 9th grade, for mathematics learning and literacy learning. It takes, 6 to 9 months to actually go through all of the literature and cull that literature for all of those factors associated with learning. So I know you probably can't read this, but this is what it looks like. So the website is lps.digitalpromise.org. But if you see, there's the actual language and literacy factors. So if I go to a college and I take a class on teaching reading, likely I'm going to learn about all of these kinds of things, syntax and decoding and vocabulary comprehension, alphabet knowledge, and those kinds of things. But actually the other cognitive factors are just as important, right? And have different impacts on my ability to learn to read. So inhibition, attention, visual processing, auditory processing. Sensory integration, right? Those are incredibly important as well. The social and emotional factors. We know more and more about how emotion affects learning, so understanding those social and emotional factors. And finally, the student's own biographical background. What is their home literacy environment? Do they get enough sleep? How's their nutrition? What's the, what else is going on in their lives? Do they have trauma in their past? We are understanding much more about the effect of trauma on learning. So these are the factors. So this is the first one that we did that's on pre-K 3 reading. Now we also have mathematics done, and we're working on the 4 through 6 and then the 7 through 9 as well. So, so we will have all those done. But again, deep research, all of this, by the way, is all referenced online. What you can do online is you can actually scroll over something. So say vocabulary, right? So if you scroll over vocabulary, it'll highlight the other factors that are most closely associated with vocabulary. Or you can scroll over trauma and see which factors are impacted by trauma. So again, what we're trying to do is take research, the deep research that you all do, that other people do, and apply it to learning organizations, educators, help educators use it, but also help developers use it. So our first audience for this work is developers, right? So someone who's developing a reading product, do they understand all of this so that they can actually take into consideration, they're building a vocabulary product, what should they actually be thinking about? So that's kind of the work that we're doing there, and as researchers, hopefully you'll find that interesting. Okay, so these are the 5 principles of powerful learning. Okay, so what we know from the learning sciences. So this is a summary. So people always say, we know some things from learning sciences, but what are those things? And some things are like, well, on the one hand, this study shows this, but on the other hand, this study shows that. So I'm going to very quickly run through 10 things we actually know from learning sciences that we can stand on. First of all, that learning is developmental, right? So people develop at different rates, and it's developmental. Second is that the total environment matters. What happens in school, out of school, the total environment is important. And by the way, this brain is just a picture. It's not like parts of the brain, to be clear. Not anatomically anywhere near anything correct. Third is that it's personal and meaningful. We know from learning sciences that learning that is personal, is meaningful, that is what we remember, has a place to put it in our brains. Fourth, likewise, prior knowledge. If we can connect things to prior knowledge, we know that's important. And for all of you, this is all pretty basic, but if we think about what could we teach all incoming teachers? What are the core things that we know from the learning sciences? Fifth, social interaction is important. So the social structure of your classroom, the community that you build is critical to learning. Next is that it's things that are challenging and achievable are important, right? So hitting that peak performance between frustration and boredom. I think it was David Gibson, actually. We saw him in Australia earlier today. I think he did that kind of initial research on hooking people up and finding that the brain waves around frustration and boredom are very similar. I remember talking to him about that one time. Next is practice makes perfect. Again, lots of practice. Habits of mind can be learned, right? So you can learn these skills to become a good learner, to have good habits of mind. Emotion matters. So back to our Italian teacher at the top of the hour, the Italian teacher who made sure that the social and emotional connections were solid, and you pay attention to emotion. Emotion can, if you stir emotion, you can capture learning, and also you need a safe emotional environment. And finally, that people have these unique jagged profiles. So these are things we know from learning sciences that can be kind of shared and leveraged. We also have all the references for this too, by the way, on our website. Okay, what are the barriers to expanding powerful learning experiences? Just think about that. We have an hour between 10:15 and 11:15 or so that we can have a discussion about all these kinds of things. So we won't go into the barriers now, but how about a few enablers? So we'll bring this home with 3 or 4 kind of enablers. What can enable kind of more powerful learning experiences? So first, technology. All right, this is near and dear to all of our hearts. If you think through all of those videos and you think about how was technology used, right? We didn't see kids in headphones like running through math problems, at their own pace. We saw kids seeking information, learning how to code, learning how to sew, learning how to print something 3D, publishing to a wide audience, using emerging technologies such as VR, lots and lots of ways that technology was used in authentic and powerful ways. So what we're trying to do, and I know you all do as well, is this notion of closing the digital learning gap. Providing access is important, making sure people are good citizens and they know how and why to participate, and then making sure that people have experiences that are powerful. Otherwise, they will grow up thinking the technology drives them. They don't have any agency over that technology, and the technology, the artificial intelligence, and those things are just going to be kind of powering their world, but they won't really have a good understanding or a grasp of how to take charge of that. So closing the digital learning gap is one of the things that we all are working on. Second is competency-based learning, right? So this is, again, something that people have been talking about. We know people are, learn at different speeds and that kind of thing. But in the U.S., the pacing guides, this day everybody's doing this. This is the spelling words for every single kid. This is like the lack of sort of flexibility is kind of staggering, actually. And so thinking about competency-based learning. One of the things that we're working on in terms of assessments is this notion of Educator Micro-Credentials. And I saw somebody, I think there's probably a lot of people here working on badges and thinking about the kinds of things that educators as learners learn throughout their career. So this is just a quick video that will kind of give you a quick introduction to Educator Micro-Credentials.
Ever wondered how you can be recognized for professional learning throughout your career? Micro-credentials recognize the skills you've developed to drive learning in and out of your classroom. This lets you personalize your learning based on interests, your students' needs, and school and district goals. By shifting how learning is recognized, from seat time to demonstrated competence, micro-credentials make the growing wealth of resources you use, from virtual communities and online tools to coaches and mentors, more relevant and meaningful. You can select a single micro-credential or a stack, collect the required evidence, and submit it online for assessment. If successful, you will earn the micro-credential and get a shareable digital badge to enhance your profile, resume, and validate your unique skills. To see what this can mean for you and your school, explore the Micro-Credential platform today.
All right, so if we think about those kinds of things, and you're setting up all of your teacher educators, your educators, you are a teacher, the educators in your programs, prospective teachers, to be lifelong learners, right? To use all of these tools, to join communities of practice and that kind of thing, to know how to figure out what to do with a particular student in your classroom, right? So if you're thinking that through, what are all the ways that they can then demonstrate that they are becoming competent at, for example, meeting a student that's on the autism spectrum? They might be a very accomplished teacher, but this is kind of the first time that they are, that they've been faced with that. So this is the year that they're going to learn that. It may not be that there's a college or university or an in-service session magically appearing before them. So what are all the ways that they can learn those things? how can they demonstrate their learning so that they can, in fact, progress. So finally, challenge-based learning is kind of this framework that we developed actually at Apple 10 years ago or so, and it continues to live on. And it's just a framework that helps people sort of engage with a complex challenge, investigate it through a deep inquiry approach, and then come up with solutions, right, and take action. So it's engage, investigate, act. And only advertisement today is if you are interested, we are running a Challenge Institute in Monterey in July. So we would love to have folks join us. Bring your challenges, you know, get into this, roll up your sleeves, explore Monterey, and have a good time. Okay, finally, what is uniquely human? I leave you with that. Think through what is uniquely human, what are those skills, and what are those things that we need to make sure all of our teachers, as they're going into schools, understand. Like, that is their core mission, is develop in their students what is uniquely human. And with that, we'll end. In, I think, 20 minutes or so, I think 10:15, we will convene somewhere, some room, somewhere. And which one? In Hopkins for a conversation. So if you want to join a conversation about all of this, bring your stories, bring your ideas, bring questions, thoughts, examples, and we can dig into this and build it out even more. So thank you very much. Have a great conference.